Greetings, my YouTube family. Thank you so much for visiting my channel. Today, I'm going to review Amazon stock, and this is one of the businesses that I think of each time that I want to buy books online, and even services that I want, like sometimes clothes. And before I do that, I'm going to disclaimer that this content is meant for educational purposes. So please have that in mind, that this is not to be taken as investment advice. But for the business of the day, I'm going to do a deep dive in the business profile, what they do, Amazon as a business, the past earning highlights, and a quick financial analysis. But when I invest in a stock, I go beyond these things to dig into their filings and other things. But I'm just going to summarize the basics that I do when I'm investing. But for those who don't know me, my name is Isaac Jonas, and I'm an economist by training. And I started this platform, Streetwise Economics, to share educational content on investing and personal finance. I struggled to get this information when I was starting this journey, so I like to just share this educational purposes for educational purposes. And I'm a retail investor in the US and Canadian stock exchanges. And now, in terms of Amazon as a business, most people I talk to, they buy services, things online, so they mostly use Amazon for that service, and it's big internationally. And you can see here, you can pause and see what they do specifically, but they are diverse. They are in Germany, UK. You can buy even from Japan, so that's something that is good. But when I invest in stocks, I look at things like, before I even start to do a deep dive, it has to meet the minimum threshold of at least 15% return on equity. And also, I like companies that do some share buybacks, but also I listen to the earnings calls, and also see and follow what's going on, and see if the management, they follow through with what they promise in terms of the guidance and the things that they do. So because I will be investing my money, but in terms of the past earnings, Amazon has been beating and crashing earnings, right? I suspect that generally the CEOs and the executives, they kind of set the bar a little bit lower so that at least they can beat it. But still, nonetheless, even in uh, the latest earnings that they released, they did beat the um, revenue expectations by 2.23%. You can see here it was expected to be in the region of 1.166.2.3 billion, but they make a lot of money. They generated about almost 170 billion. So they are a very good business in that regard. Now, before I invest in a business, I want to invest in a business that has very strong financial position. So by that I mean, I like to see increasing revenues. You can see here, for the past 10 years, the revenues have been increasing. So that's a good thing. I then go into the net income and see, is the net profit been increasing. In 2014, they made a loss of minus 241 million, but the next year they made 596 million, and thereafter it has been increasing. But in December 2022, it made a loss of 2.7 billion. But it's a red flag for me. But overall, I see a fairly upward trend, which is good. Now, in terms of the balance sheet, I go to the long-term debt. I can see, compared to the size of this business, the long-term debt has been increasing, but not as much, because if you look at the uh, trailing monthly value, you can see that for this year they have 58 billion. Let's say just roughly it's 58 billion 314, right? But if I look at the free cash flows, 32, they have 32 billion, right? So it's roughly twice. They can pay it off, let's say, in 2 and some months, 2 years. So it's not really bad. But I prefer companies like Meta, that I've shown you. They're very little debt, they are conservative. But a business of this magnitude, they can easily get and pay off this debt, because usually it's for low interest. You can see this information here, but they also have massive revenue potential, and also they have a history of increasing revenues. Also, now when I look at the most recent sales, that was in 21 February 2023. That was the information that I got from this rule 1 toolbox. It gives me that information. It pulls out all this information, right? There hasn't been a lot of selling recently because this was in around February. So when insiders are not selling, I like also when they are buying. That kind of gives me a clue that they're believing in the long term health of the business. But sometimes they can sell, maybe they want to offset or excise the rights of the shares that they have. That's a way of raising money as well. So, but I pay particular attention. I also read an article that shows that recently, I think in Q1 for 2024, the founder of Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, was selling billions actually. So sorry about that. Let me just a blip here of another video that was actually being recorded. My apologies. So he was selling, and maybe to fund his ventures, but it's not uncommon. But I can see that these big funds, they were also buying into this business, so that's good. But there were some that sold in Q4 2023. But when I see the buying and selling, I look closely to see why this selling, and sometimes it's because they have too much exposure. If they are these funds that have some regulations that they have to follow, like mutual funds, they should not be exposed in some specific, like in one business. And when I look at the scores here, you can see that in their space, they are actually very well at the top. But you see also has a good mod score, but they've been doing terrible in terms of return on investment. So that's where Amazon, it beats them on that. And also Alibaba, but I wouldn't consider investing in China. I don't know that terrain that well. So, and also because of the geopolitical space between the US and China, and because recently the US government, they are banning, I think it's Tencent, and what they are the a company that uh, runs TikTok, I think it's Tencent. And what they are doing is, their fears that companies like Apple, Tesla, they might be affected, because if the Chinese, they retaliate. So the geopolitics is very important. So I focus on Canada and the US and companies that have a global exposure, but at least their main headquarters is based in the US. So at least I'm familiar with that. With the artificial intelligence, Amazon is well positioned to be at the forefront, and also they have a lot of experience in that space. And but I would wait to buy the shares in a region of around if it drops to 130. But usually there are significant events, like maybe the Fed says something, or that they are increasing interest rates. But these are businesses that have very strong balance sheet. So but sometimes people may just sell off. So I always like to have a portion of my portfolio in cash to acquire shares of companies like this. And sometimes now I consider leaps or options for the long term. They are cheaper in terms of the um, premium that I put up front, but also they can generate quite a good return if it goes in my favor. But it's just something that I do. It's very risky if you don't understand and don't know how to choose the strike price and all those things. There's a lot of fundamentals that you have to understand. Now, in conclusion, I will say Amazon is a fundamental business. It's a fundamentally profitable business. It is something that I would seriously consider, but I would do a deep dive into their filings to see if there are potential risks. Usually in their financial statements, in the filings, 10K forms, 8K forms that are filed with the Security Exchange Commission, I will see that and do a deep dive and see if there are concerns. But now, in conclusion, I would like to thank you for being part of this journey. Please consider subscribing, because I will be reviewing more businesses, and you can also tell me some businesses that you want me to review. And may the markets be with you, and I wish you all the best in the markets. And please manage your risk, because it can be risky investing in businesses that you do not understand. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day again.